Nisambula vinaka loloma mai viti. Welcome to Matawa ni Vosa Vakaviti, the Fijian Language Week 2021. This year's theme is Noqu Vosa ai vakadei ni Noqu tiko vinaka, which means my language provides stability for my well-being. Happy Fijian Language Week whānau, Aotearoa, and the whole of the Pacific. Joining me to talk more about the Fijian Language Week this year is Malcolm Andrews. Malcolm is from Wainaloka, Ovalau, in the Lomaiviti province. He completed his undergraduate studies with a degree in health science, double majoring in psychology and health promotion. Also, he has completed his postgraduate diploma in arts, majoring in psychology, and currently in his final chapter of his master's in psychology at Mass University. Malcolm is the current Health and Education Partnership Manager at the Pasifika Medical Association, or PMA, and Acting Practice Advisor for Pasifika Futures Limited. He has a strong passion in language revitalization and raising cultural awareness for Fijians in the diaspora. Malcolm is also a co-host on the PMN Fiji on Radio 531 PI. Welcome on the show, Pacific Health Talanoa, Malcolm.
Yeah, malole se fu mawa, malole ma ni sambula vinaka, and happy Fijian Language Week, my brother.
Oh, happy Fijian language week. It is great to see that smile on your face, Malcolm. Man, that just basically defines what Fiji is all about, you know, and it sort of like relates to the theme of this year's Language Week, you know, which is language provides stability to my well-being. What does that mean to you, Malcolm?
That's right. That's a really good theme. So I'd like to say thank you to the Ministry of Pacific Peoples and all the people, that contributed to the designing of the program and particularly the theme. I think for us Fijians, language is the pathway or the blueprint for obviously holistic well-being. Because it is in our language that, values and principles and all the practices that make us Fijian. I'll give an example. The word mbula, you open up with mbula. So mbula is obviously hello in Fiji, but we say mbula to say life or good health. And when we say mbula to another person, it is invoking the spirit of goodwill. So when you say mbula to me, you are invoking the spirit of goodwill within me to come out so that we can share halfway. So language, like I said, it's a gift and it's a blessing to us.
Wow,
so it's aligned to the theme, huh?
That is so powerful. I mean, I didn't know that, to be honest, Malcolm, but it's good to know now. So every time I say bula to someone, it means that, or someone says bula to another person, it's pretty much the same as breathing life, or giving blessing to someone. So thank you so much, Malcolm, for defining that and explaining that. Now, with all your commitments, you are a very busy young man. Very busy. You are a manager for Pasifika Medical Association. You're also the practice advisor for Pasifika Futures, and you are also the face of of Fiji on PMN Fiji, as well as in all these videos that our community have seen in Fiji for COVID-19. You are the face of Fiji. Now, tell us, how do you manage to commit and making sure that you are committed to all your callings, Malcolm?
I think when you marry a Samoan, it's you got to keep up, You got to keep up. So for me, I think personally, I'm always a person that loves working. So I, ever since I left Fiji to come to New Zealand, I made up my mind with the fact that as long as I'm breathing, I have to contribute. It's for the betterment of the society that I live in. But most importantly, I do all this work not for myself or my immediate family. You know, there are people back home that's obviously relying on me. I've got my mother, I've got my aunties, my uncles, and I've got my little cousins whom I'm paying for their school fees and whatnot. So for me, working is an opportunity. I see it as a blessing in disguise because I get to do what I love, but at the same time help out my families back home. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, to give back. Unless and until I give back to my family, then for me personally, it all means nothing. Yeah.
Well, vinaka, Malcolm. Now, I've also heard you speak in the formal Fijian language. And what I noticed at the cover ceremony that I attended, and you were the main speaker, is that when you spoke, the Fijians listened. Even the older generation. I also saw you speak at one of the conferences, for health in Wellington, and the way you presented yourself was that you were so confident and that you knew what you were talking about, in terms of speaking from the heart. Tell me, how did you, have all these skills? Because to me, you got it all naturally, or has, working in the health sector always been a dream of yours and working with people?
Yeah, thank you. For me, growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and by that time I was born, my grandmother and my grandfather have retired, and my grandmother had arthritis. So
Wow.
every night, every evening, we never had electricity back then. So my grandmother used to ask me to come and fulfill her leg or to massage her leg, her arm. At a very young age, I promised my grandmother that one day I will work in health so that I could look after her and my grandfather and those and our elders within our community. But then when I came to New Zealand, things didn't go according to plan. Obviously, it was quite expensive to go to school, to go to university. So I could never pursue my passion in doing medicine. But God always have other opportunities and other doors for us. So I pursued my obviously bachelor's in health science and psychology and health promotion. But in terms of speaking and advocating for our people here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I always believe it is in my blood. It is inbuilt. As Fijians, we have different roles within our Fijian context. There's the chief. There is the kingmaker or the Martin Vanua. There are the fishermen. So all these different roles within a society work equally, and they rely on each other for the prosperity and the sustainability of a society, of a community. My traditional role is what we call in Fiji the mbete, or the priest. So this is pre-contact, before the arrival of the Westerners. So my ancestors, their specific role is to worship God, whoever the God is that they worship, and then they have to advise the people. So me speaking in front of people is not something that I just learned overnight. This is inbuilt. It is passed down from my ancestors. So it is my duty to safeguard it and prepare it for my children and their children. So yeah, hope I answered that question.
Thank you, Malcolm. Vinaka, now, Fijian language. Where do you see Fijian language in the next 20 or 30 years in New Zealand, Malcolm? Do you think we've got enough resources to make sure that we pass the ngangana or the Vosa vakaviti to the next generation?
It is a challenge. I saw a research because I'm part of the Fonofofotua language advisory group at the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, and according to the census in 2018, there is a decrease or decline in the number of Pacific people in Aotearoa speaking the language, and particularly those that were born and raised here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And statistics are showing in the next 10, 20 years, majority of Pacific people will be obviously raised and born here in New Zealand. So it is an uphill battle for us. Now, I guess, the little that we're doing with the Ministry of Pacific Peoples and programs such as this and other programs, we need the right spirit. We need the right place and the right time. And then, although it is an uphill battle, but we should never give up or lose the fight because this is our language. And, just to wrap this question up, I think biblically, because we're spiritual people, I think in Psalms 139, verse 14, it says that I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. So God created us and gave us this gift of language. So for us living here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it is our duty to safeguard that. Because if God is giving you something, it is from God. The greatest thing that we could ever do to pay back is to protect that and safeguard that language.
Vinaka, Markham,
So,
wow.
yeah.
It is great to have a young leader, like yourself, Markham, on the Pacific Health Talanoa show today. Now, I'm also aware that you are happily married to a Samoan queen who won the battle with many Fijian ladies who tried so hard to steal the heart of a young Fijian warrior. Now, in terms of living in an environment with two different cultures, Malcolm, how do you manage to make sure that you meet the expectations of both cultures?
That's a tough question, brother, because my wife is strong-minded. Samoans, born and raised in Samoa, and obviously here in New Zealand. I think for me, in order for my marriage to work, I need to lower myself and be humble, because I can never win a battle with my beautiful Samoan wife. But I'll give a good example. Our little daughter, as soon as she was born, my wife said that she's going to Samoan Aonga Mata. So she goes to the Seungangongo Aonga Mata at Otahuhu.
Yes.
And so we made a deal, okay? She goes to school at a Samoan Aonga Mata. When we stay home, I speak in Fijian, I play Fijian songs. And like I said, language is inbuilt, so it's in our blood. All we need to do is create an environment. And in Fiji, there's these three concepts that we always use that will enhance mana or sustainability in anything that we do. And this is the concept of time, place, and space. So we need to find the right time, okay, and the right place, which is the environment, and then invoke that right spirit or that right space in order for the language to grow. So language for me, I think from my understanding, is like a seed that we plant. We need to find the right soil and the right amount of water and sunlight in order for it to grow.
Vinaka, Markham. Now, as a Pacific leader for Pacific Health, Markham, and as an advocate for the Fijian language, beautiful language, how do you think we should implement and use the language in order to make the health and well-being of our people better?
Awesome, that's a good question. And a politician, Winston Churchill, once said that the further backward that you can look, the further forward that you can see. So I think for me, in terms of language, let's not try and grab things from left, right, and center. The answers to our well-being, the answers to a prosperous future for Pacific people is within our language, is within our protocols. And I think in Jeremiah 6:16, it says, this is what the Lord says: stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is and walk in it. And our ancestors, in the Fijian context, our ancestors were so wise that they realized that nobody had been to the future. But in order for us to prepare for the future, we need to look back. We need to see the practices, the values, the principles that have kept our people whilst they navigated the vast moana, while they jump from one land to the other. It is in there. We need to, like I said, we need to create that space and that opportunity, because answers for health and well-being here in Aotearoa is deeply rooted within our cultural protocols.
Vinaka, Markham. Wow. So powerful. So we're pretty much holistically, Talanoa about the Fijian Language Week, today. And like I said, I'm so blessed. And if I can just summarize what you just said is, I can say the language has a mana. There is mana, there is blessing, there is, everything in our languages, especially Pacific languages. So thank you so much, Malcolm. Now, for those who have not been vaccinated for COVID-19, what would you like to say to our people who are still not sure, Malcolm?
I think that's a really important topic and a hot issue at the moment. I think what we need to do is to go back to the root of all this, which is understanding the why behind this vaccination drive. This morning I was sharing with Ete the concept of spiritual wisdom. In Fiji, we have this word called yalomatua. Yalomatua means, spiritual wisdom and wise. And you cannot learn this through simply reading or watching something. You need to immerse yourself, in different ways. So in order for you to understand this drive around vaccination and its significance, you need to immerse yourself through scripture, through research, through talking to people. It is a process. And, I'm married to someone, I always use this word, the EO, which is I stands for immersion, O is for observation, and I is for imitation. So we use this all the time in order to broaden our knowledge. But at the same time, we have a key responsibility as individuals, as a community, as a church, as a nation, for the well-being of our children, for the future of our terroir, the future of Pasifika in our terroir. So, if my child is hungry, I wouldn't give my child poison to feed her. So if my people is suffering and my people are dying, would I not be vaccinated? Because I might be the cause of death or sickness to another. So the welfare and the well-being of the collective rests with the decision of the individual. So, and I've had my vaccination in the beginning of the year. Obviously, there's no magnetic thing on my shoulder, no chip whatsoever. So I'm still well. Again, get informed, talk to the right people, listen to the right people, particularly your GP and your doctors whom you've seen for the last 20 years, rather than listening to someone that you've just seen online for the last 30 seconds. So,
wow. Awesome. Thank you so much, Malcolm, for taking the time out to come on the Pacific Health Talanoa and share with us about your experience, about your expertise, and also about, the awesome work that you do. Thank you so much. God bless you. And if you want to see Malcolm again, tune in on PMN Fiji every Friday. The man himself is on the show from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and sometimes all the way to 12 a.m. Wow, what a good servant. I guess you learned a lot from your Samoan wife. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Mayuso.
And all the best there.
Yeah. Vinaka vakalevu. Tau vakarongo. Again, the Fijian Language Week, Matawa ni Vosa vakaviti. This year's theme is Noqu Vosa ai vakadei, ni Noqu tiko vinaka, which means the language provides stability to my well-being. Thank you so much for tuning in on Pacific Health Talanoa with BLU TV. I will see you tomorrow with more Fijian words and more Fijian guests. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. God bless you. Mwah.
Squad, baby. Rex, J. Sands.
Let's go.
Oh, say I'm say you are complete to me, I get you. By the way that you move and the way that you smile. Say, oh my Dorima, Baby, you be giving your hand, I'll take you anywhere. You give me something that I never had. Cause you care, but about to me and the family. Say, why you waiting on me to talk to you? Yeah, I'ma listen what y'all say. Yeah, Noqu Vosa come here. Yeah, they on the layout, dirty wine, girl, dirty wine. Yeah, say, tama in and not the bite, say.